Hello again, and welcome back to The Broken Past. If you saw in our mail day video, we picked up one of these kind of nasty looking Gameboy Advance SPs. This is I guess there's no sticker on it, but this is the model 001. This is not a 101, which means this does not have a backlit screen. But I picked it up for pretty cheap. I thought it would be fun to do a full-on case swap on this guy. It's kind of hard to tell in the video. I'm not sure how well that comes across, but the seller who sold this on eBay apparently didn't like the red color and decided he wanted to paint it all this gold color that never really laid flat. So it's this really rough, pretty awful gold colored texture on here. Did it on the screen as well. Some of it leaked onto the screen, covered the buttons as well as down here. So the whole thing's pretty rough shape, but for pretty cheap, I picked up a nice aftermarket. Obviously, this is not a factory case, but a nice aftermarket NES shell for this guy. So this would be kind of a fun video to do a case swap on this guy. This should be pretty fast. This is a lot simpler to do than the DS Lite, the DSi, those kind of videos we've already done. So this shouldn't be too bad. But in the end, I think we'll have a much nicer SP when we're done. And I also picked up a glass screen lens for it as well. So we'll see if we can get this one clean. If not, we'll use this instead. And I think it'll look really nice once it's done. So for now, we'll just move this out of the way, and we'll start with the disassembly for this. So the SP is pretty easy to disassemble. There's really not a whole lot of parts to it. We'll start off with using our Phillips head screw to remove the battery out of here. I just use the spudger, not really necessary, but makes it a bit easier to get the battery out of there. The battery's not too bad. And then from here, we have 6 tri-wing screws. So we'll need a tri-wing bit to get these out. There's going to be 6 here, 4 on the outside, 1 under the battery, and then 1 in the cartridge slot. So, and these are going to be different sizes as well. So we'll need to just make sure that we keep track of which ones go where. And with that, the whole bottom cover should just come right off. Now we do have some shoulder buttons in here that we are gonna, I'm not sure if this case came with these or not. We might have to transfer these over. We'll get back to that when we get it the rest of the way apart and see if we'll need to do that or not. So if we look inside of this guy, it doesn't look too bad. Shoulder buttons are a little dirty. The inside of it's a little dirty, but overall it's not too bad. I might take a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and take care of the power button and the volume buttons as well. Just make sure that those are nice and clean in there. But in the meantime, we get our Phillips bit out again. And here we have 3 more Phillips screws. Let's see if we can get it on one of the videos. To take out, to remove the main board out of the case. But before we just take the board out, we actually have the ribbon cable for the top screen underneath of this board. So very carefully, just kind of slide this out. You'll hear some clicking. We're losing a few buttons in there, and that's okay. So here, hopefully we get this on one of the videos, but this just has sort of 2 locking levers on both sides. Just really carefully pull those down, and then the ribbon cable will come right out. And we can take our board out. So our new case is actually going to have new membranes, new buttons and everything. So we'll just throw those all off to the side for now. The nice thing is we really don't need to clean any of these buttons because the contacts are all built inside of these tactile switches rather than conductive pads on some of the other consoles. So this is actually in pretty good shape. It might be worth cleaning some of the gunk and dust off of here. There's a few straggling hairs and stuff in here. We'll see. I'll probably just leave it for now, but we'll sit this off to the side as well and take off the rest of our buttons. Being careful to watch out for that ribbon cable. And we might save these buttons. We'll see. Some of these aftermarket cases have buttons that just don't feel right, so we might reuse those. And then our speaker doesn't actually have a wire attached to it because it simply connects to these two pads with pressure, similar to how the original DS does. So no wires for this guy. We'll just see if we can get under him here. There we have it. And now, underneath of the ribbon cable is a tiny Phillips screw. And that is holding the hinge cover for the top screen in place. So we'll remove this guy. Again, keep them separate so we know which one is that screw. Flip it over. Pull out that hinge cover. So we also need to take, there's going to be 5 screws. One here in all 4 corners, as well as one in the middle. And the 2 on the sides have these thicker bumpers, so that way when the case snaps closed, it won't smash into the bottom screen or potentially scratch or break the screen. These are obviously not going to be reused, so I have no problem damaging these to get them out. Move them all here out of the way. Then these might come apart. You might also need a spudger to get to it. In this case, it looks like it's almost all coming apart. And we're going to be very careful with that ribbon cable. And just sit that back there. And we're almost done. So we have our hinges. So the SP has 2 hinges, one on both sides. And let's see here. I'll take my cheapy screwdriver here. So if we can see it on the video, I'm not sure if it'll go in focus or not, but there's some plastic tabs here that hold the hinge in place. There's one of those on each side. But it's not really feasible to try to push those down so we can pull the hinge out. So usually the easiest way is just to watch your fingers and just take a screwdriver and usually give it a little bit of force. There goes one. Okay, so got the hinges out at the expense of a couple knuckles. There's definitely a lot of force to get those out. I think I ended up scraping my knuckles across some of this rough plastic and gave myself a pretty good cut. So be careful. Obviously, this is probably the hardest part, is getting those darn hinges out. So just be careful when you're doing that. So let's take a look at our screen here and try to decide if we want to take that cover off. Since we bought one, I'm pretty certain that I do, just because I want to just go ahead and make it look as nice as possible when we're done. So I'm trying to look through here and figure out the alignment, make sure I can get everything lined up properly. So first thing we need to do is get the old screen cover off so we can put the new one on. These are going to be glued in there pretty well. Just like that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this guy and find my screen. And take the back. I'm sure there might be a better way to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and just take this back piece off, as well as well, part of the screen. Try not to touch it. Simply align it into place and take this part, slide it in there. And this part, again, I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it, but to me it seems the easiest way to make sure that everything lines up nicely. I guess I don't need that connected anymore. Now we know that everything is lined up correctly so that we don't get it off-centered and then end up not having it fit well into the new case. And while we're at it, we need to take these top outer covers off of the hinges. And then we'll need to put the new ones on as well before it goes into the case. So I have those sitting over here. Might as well go ahead and dump out all the stuff. Looks like they actually put the screws in a separate part of that pouch, so we'll deal with that in a bit. So I don't know how well this will show up in the video, but there's a tiny little notch on one side of the hinge. And there's a tiny notch on this part of the hinge cover as well. And that will slide in from the back side and simply kind of stick in over that little clip. And this one's actually a little scuffed up. Oh well. And we'll do the same for this one. So the nice thing is with this case, they actually already included the hinges along with the shoulder buttons. So we don't need to worry about that. What we actually need to do first is take these hinges and we're going to push them back through the sides and lock this the new case in place. And again, with as much force as it took to get out of there, it'll take an equivalent amount of force to push it back in. So one of the issues you might run into, that I ran into removing those hinges, is the little flanges that keep them in place, especially on older consoles like this, have a high chance of breaking. In that case, like we can tell here, if I hold the hinges, if I open it, it has that nice lock. But if I let go, they start to kind of try to work their way out just a little bit. So it might be worth spending a few extra bucks and getting a set of new hinges to use for these. And that way you don't risk destroying your knuckles trying to get the old ones out. But these are in now, so it's good enough for me. So I will get the screen here. And we simply slide that ribbon cable in place. We, at this point, need to take the nice shipping protector off of our nice new glass screen. And that's going to sit in the front of the case. And the ribbon is going to loop, goes down in one loop and then drops down through the bottom. And we can sit the back of the screen in place. This one doesn't clip in quite as well as the other one did. It's okay. And from here, I'll start screwing the top of the case back together. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and put the hinge cover in place as well. All right, we are almost done. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall all of our buttons and our speaker. Get everything in place here. Everything should fit in place. Our A and B buttons are notched so that they'll only fit one way. Drop our brightness in place. At this point, I was going to do this and I forgot. I'm going to clean the power slider just to make sure there are no issues down the road. And that process is pretty easy. Just put a little heavy dab of isopropyl alcohol. Just work it back and forth. And just like for the removal process, we need to see if we can do this around the camera. Take our pretty delicate ribbon cable here and slide it in. And take our locking notches. And drop the whole thing down into place. And take our 3 Phillips screws. And we are on the home stretch. So the new case came with one, but rather than opening up the bag right now, I just took this one from the other case. We need to take the sort of the screw bolt or locking washer, I guess, in place, and make sure we install that in here. Otherwise, if we don't, the battery will, or the battery cover will not have a place to secure the screw into there. So this guy should hopefully just fit right in there. Lastly, we drop the back cover on, making sure that our buttons and everything line up. Biggest being the power button down here. And let everything kind of click into place. And again, for now, I'm just going to go ahead and reuse the old screws. It's just kind of habit, I guess. I just use the ones that I've already got out. And let's pop our battery in and give it a shot. The nice new Game Boy battery cover. And again, this is the screw that bites into that sort of screw bolt on the inside. And let's turn it on. So we can see the hinges are starting to pop out. Again, I'll probably end up getting new hinges to fix that issue. Let's turn it on. Okay. Let's grab the battery charger. Okay, now we're plugged in. We can see the battery's charging. Let's make sure it's working. And it is. Let's make sure we got volume Try it one more time. You don't have volume. I wonder if we had volume before. Okay, well, let's do some troubleshooting. So I actually have a spare from one of the DS's. And I believe, yep, that it's an exact same size. So let's try that, see if that fixes it. And I might be able to get away with testing it without having to put it all back together. If we just hold this in place and flip the power. It's hard to... Yep, that sounds promising. So, this speaker is also bad. No big deal. And there we go. Pop the battery back in the right way. Drop the battery cover on. Let's test it one more time. Make sure we're still good. And we are. Perfect. So a few final touches and we're done. So I guess I am going to have to cut into this part of the bag. We're going to need ourselves a few things out of here. The first are the two bumpers that have no stick to them. It's kind of funny. I guess they'll still work. And then three little rings. Try not to scratch the case while I'm doing this. And the last one. Almost done. So we have our Nintendo logo, which I do want to double check, which I guess I can see it. Maybe I can't. I believe the Nintendo logo faces out on the case, so you know what? If it's not, it's okay. Take the sticker off. Line it up. Drop it in there. And the last and final piece is our unofficial sticker. Let's see if we can get this guy lined up here. Sticker's always the hardest part to line up. There's a little bump there, but that's okay. Good enough. There we have it. Let's pop in a game. Give it a test. See how these buttons feel. Probably need to charge it while we're at it. So the backlight's still working. So I've heard complaints before about these buttons not working well, but quite honestly, these feel great. Outside of the hinges, you know, having some broken spots and not wanting to fit back in right. Overall, I'm super happy with this. Yeah, so I'm into being a little bit longer video than I thought, although maybe after editing it, it's not going to be quite as long. But hopefully this video was helpful for those of you who, you know, have a painted Gameboy Advance SP shell and you want to get a new one, or who just want to put some life back into a really scratched up shell. The swap itself is pretty easy. The only real issue are these hinges. But yeah, overall, it's not too bad. Not nearly as hard if you followed along before and have done a DS light swap or a DS, you know, case swap or screen swap or any of that kind of thing. This is significantly easier, just with the exception of these hinges. So yeah, thanks again for watching. If you're not a subscriber and you're interested in these kind of videos, please consider giving this channel a subscribe. If anything, do it for my knuckles that have sacrificed themselves for this video. So with that, thanks again, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.